From challenging Hollywood's stance on science and religion,
science is the practical pursuit of God. The two are not exclusive. They dance together there, they go together.
to turning down a $14 million paycheck for a movie role to save his own soul.
I was able to turn down $14 million. I needed to say no to that for my own soul.
These are the moments where Matthew McConaughey destroys atheist Hollywood's narrative, like on the Joe Rogan Experience when he shuts down the trendy notion that he's merely spiritual, not religious.
Wrong here, you are religious in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Raised in a devout Baptist home, McConaughey sets the record straight. He's religious and not afraid to say it. He shuts down the vague, trendy label atheist Hollywood likes to use and goes on to explain the difference between those two terms to Joe.
I want to bring this up in this day and age when people go, no, I'm not religious, I'm only spiritual. The Latin root of religion is re-legare, and legare means to bind together. Re means again. Well, in a world that's saying I'm only spiritual because I want unity, that's exactly what religion means. We've bastardized the meaning of it over time, and we've excluded people and we've corporatized it and such, but yes, I am religious.
Matthew then goes on to talk about the relationship between science and religion.
Can you be a believer in a world of science? Science is the practical pursuit of God. The two are not exclusive. They dance together there, they go together. Belief in science. And I never saw those as contradictions.
He highlights his role in the 1997 movie Contact, explaining that he took the role just so he could challenge Hollywood's stance on science and religion.
And that's part of the reason I attacked that role and became a part of that movie. I wanted to play a person that had that point of view of a believer in a world of science, not at the exclusion of science and not at the exclusion of belief.
As the conversation carries on, Joe wants to know if Matthew has experienced kickbacks from being outspoken about his Christian beliefs in Hollywood.
Have you encountered difficulty expressing this in Hollywood? You know, Hollywood is predominantly left-wing and very secular or Jewish in some circles, but it's not like a place where Christian fundamental values are espoused openly.
Without naming names, Matthew reveals how some of his fellow Hollywood peers behave whenever he speaks about his beliefs and faith in Jesus Christ.
Moments where I was on stage receiving an award in front of my peers in Hollywood. And there were people in the crowd that I have prayed with before dinners many times. And when I thank God, I saw some of those people go to clap, but then notice that, whoa, this could be a bad thing on my resume, and then sit back on their hands.
He destroys atheist Hollywood, calling out the fear-driven silence and pointing out how so many people have to hide their faith just to fit in.
I've seen people read the room and go, whoa, that wouldn't bode well for me in the future. If for getting a job or getting votes or what have you. Yeah. I have seen that. I've witnessed that. I don't judge him for it. I just wish, that it seems like a silly argument.
When Matthew McConaughey won the Oscar for Best Actor in Dallas Buyers Club, he exposes that fear-driven silence by doing something rare in Hollywood.
I want to thank God because that's who I look up to. He's graced my life with opportunities that I know are not of my hand or any other human hand. He has shown me that it's a scientific fact that gratitude reciprocates. In the words of the late Charlie Lawton, who said, when you got God, you got a friend, and that friend is you.
While Hollywood is changing people, making them hide their faith or keep quiet about it, Matthew stands out. In an interview with Lex Fridman, he talks about his role in the series True Detective and how it brought him closer to God.
I was as strong spiritually with my relationship with God when I did True Detective as I've ever been.
In True Detective, Matthew McConaughey took on the role of Rustin Cole, a gifted but deeply troubled detective grappling with existential darkness. Atheist podcaster Lex Fridman wanted to know how portraying such a bleak, godless character could have brought Matthew closer to God. And Matthew explains
that my own strength of spirit in my own personal life, Matthew's lifetime, gave me the confidence to go further away, deeper into the torture and deeper into but he was still always going after truth. That was the thing. He was not an evil man. I don't even know if you can call him a non-believer, but he was always going after the truth, and the truth burned, and he would take the scar and get burned for it. He'd die for it. Something was there. biblical about that.
Leaving Lex speechless with his response, he reveals how the strength of his spiritual beliefs helped him embody this troubled character without changing his worldview.
I don't think it's coincidence that I had so much joie de vivre of diving into the depths of that tortured character, because I trusted that when I go out, I'll come up the other side. It's always like jumping in a pool of water. And can you trust you'll come up the other side and not, you go play a criminal. You trust you're not going to come out the other side a tyrant in real life. You just go, God, I got to go do that. Came out and I'm still alive. Got all my faculties. I'm not in jail. Whatever it is. And so my own spirituality at that time, hell, that definitely, I think, gave me a certain trust and confidence to go further into the dark.
In an entirely different conversation, Jordan Peterson brings up the role of Rustin Cole. He wanted to know why Matthew thought his faith protected him from the darkness of the character.
Okay, so you talked about playing Cole in True Detective and that you were protected from his dark excesses, let's say, by your faith. Why did that provide you with, in what way did that provide you with protection?
Jordan dives into the core philosophy of Rustin Cole. He suggested that Cole's twisted outlook on the world bears a striking resemblance to the mindset of the devil himself. So how could Matthew be protected from that?
His attitude is Mephistophelian. There's a character in Goethe's Faust, Mephistopheles, who's Satan himself, and his essential credo is that everything that lives should perish because of the sin of its existence, essentially. And so that's Cole in a nutshell. It's a logically tenable argument, but it's one that needs to be rejected holistically. I shouldn't use that word. I hate that word, but you don't reject that argument rationally because it's a rationally tenable argument. You have to reject it with your whole being instead and say, well, despite this, I'm going to live, and I'm going to try to live in an appropriate manner.
Yes.
But you said your faith protected you from Cole.
Matthew shares that it was his faith and the place he was in personally and spiritually that allowed him to play Rustin Cole. Playing the character and not getting consumed by it didn't test his faith, it strengthened it.
It was one of the things that allowed me to fully go into Cole and fully believe Cole and get down and live it and look at the world through that lens.
Right.
I had already had a few year run of my life where I was quite agnostic. My agnosticism was not about trying to prove the disbelief of God's existence. My agnosticism was about me going, you sure have been letting yourself off the hook, McConaughey, Mr. Fatalist. Oh, I'll forgive you again because you're being a repeat offender and I'm kind of tired of it. Put your damn hands on the wheel, man. Talking to myself. You're driving here and quit going to this, I can pray and be forgiven, but you're repeat offending. Cut it out. I had gone through a few years earlier in my life of agnosticism where I was not so much trying to prove a non-existence of God as I was trying to have more self-reliance and self-determination on myself because I'd been letting myself off the hook.
Matthew McConaughey has taken on several roles that many atheists argue should challenge or even weaken his faith. But in an interview with Atheist TV host Larry King, Matthew flips that narrative. Reflecting on his roles in the movies Contact and Interstellar, Matthew explains how they expanded his belief in God.
Matthew and I go back a long way. In fact, we did a scene together in Contact.
Sure did.
That movie, that was a space movie, which is nothing compared to this space movie.
No, that different. But I will say that's the movie that got me somewhat interested in just being able to go further than just my imagination and realizing what might be out there. That may be the new frontier, space. That's the film that got me thinking about, for me, God's backyard was bigger than I thought, and it was more tangible. And in this one, I get to actually go explore it. In Interstellar, I get to actually go there.
Probably hoping to catch him off guard or use his own words against him, Larry King throws a thought-provoking question Matthew's way. But Matthew does a good job answering it, defending his faith and leaving no doubt about where he stands.
And would you say you watch Interstellar, you would less believe in God or more believe in God?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I've thought about that a lot. For me, more. At the same time, the science behind it, or if you're an agnostic, I think you're going to absolutely love it. And
Oh, yeah.
I think you're gonna absolutely love it. But it, yeah, for me it does. That's personal.
Hollywood is so openly atheist that even having a conversation about faith inside a church can be seen as a threat to one's career. But Matthew McConaughey made one thing clear. When it comes to sharing the gospel, he doesn't care what Hollywood thinks.
But I realize this is a risk for you. This is a risk because I know you don't like to think this way, but in your line of work, you hanging out with the rabble that we are, people could perceive that in ways that might not be helpful to you professionally, that might be an indictment of things. And I appreciate the calculated risk that it is for you to be here. I really don't know. I really don't know of another person in your position who has come to a church and given the message. I don't know of anyone who has ever done that. So thank you,
Thank you for asking.
for doing that.
I mean,
but
I was a yes as soon as you asked. There was no other consideration.
At a local hometown church in Texas, Matthew stood before the congregation and unashamedly preached the word. It was a powerful, authentic moment, something you'd almost never see from a major Hollywood figure.
Each of us is now a part of his resurrection body, refreshed and sustained at one fountain, his spirit, where we all come to drink. The old labels that we once used to identify ourselves, labels like Jew or Greek, slave or free, are no longer useful. We need something larger and more comprehensive.
Matthew McConaughey never misses an opportunity to push back against the unspoken atheistic undercurrent that dominates Hollywood. In a virtual interview promoting his book Greenlights, he talks about a very important aspect of his Christian faith and what it means to him.
Along with getting time alone, these values that are really important to you, and prayer also comes up in that as something that you take time to do. Why do you pray? Why does that matter to you?
Prayer is my time to do inventory on myself, loved ones in my life, and what's going on in the world, and to get a perspective on who am I in it.
He goes on to touch more on prayer and how important it is to every aspect of his life.
What matters to me? What can I work on? What do I forgive myself for? What do I say, no, I'm not forgiving you for that because you just keep being a repeat offender on that. So we're going to just change this damn thing because I'm going to quit letting you off the hook with forgiving yourself for it. Or what things I go, you know what? No. Who the hell do you think you are, Matthew, for being so feeling guilty about such a situation or something you did? Where do you get off thinking you're judge and jury? You know, I have to tell myself that sometimes and go, you need to forgive yourself on that and keep working on it because you're kind of being arrogant to think you're so right and being so judgmental of yourself.
Matthew McConaughey opens up about the fast-paced, high-pressure life he lives and how prayer is his anchor through it all.
To a very fast-paced life that I live in, that a lot of people live in, it's very hard to get sort of demarcations between events. For instance, today, you're my 8th interview. I'm going back to back to back to back to back. I may start a story here in a minute and go, like I was saying earlier, and I may have to catch myself because that may have been an earlier interview. And you may not even, things start to cover and overlap. What prayer does for me is it stops time. I become number 2. I'm able to look at my past. Maybe it's at the end of the day, I say a prayer, I look at my day, unpack it slowly, one at a time. Well, what did I do? If I can get back to remembering what I did when I woke up, then what did I first do? Then what did I have for breakfast? Then what was my first interview? What did we talk about? If I just can have a mental clock in with those things, all of a sudden they start to spread out and I see them each. I kind of experience them all over again for what they were. And then that allows me to then go, okay, so what are my plans tomorrow?
While many in Hollywood turn to vices to cope or keep up, Matthew leans into his faith, using prayer to keep him grounded, focused, and free from the need to escape through destructive habits.
And when I have a better understanding of where I've been and where it is I want to go, I'm much more able to be present. So when I pray, I go through on Sunday, for instance, if I go to church, for me, is going through my week. Back to last Sunday after church. What did I get from that? What did I learn? What did I try to take into the week to work on? How did I do? What did I do Monday? What did I do Tuesday? What did I do Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Ooh, Saturday. Yeah, you started to kind of lose that a little bit. That's why I'm glad we came back to church on Sunday. It's really spread out nicely. I needed it by Saturday.
Next, Matthew gets quizzed about his Hollywood mentality, asking at what point he felt like he belonged in the industry. Without hesitation, he shares the defining moment that cemented his place in the industry.
The career that you've lived, it's very clear that you've had great success, and a lot of us love the movies that you've made. We've had fun watching them, but you've always come at the industry with such an underdog mentality of wanting to fight to where you've got to today and finding your place. Has there been a moment where you suddenly felt like you belonged, you'd earned your place, and you deserved to be where you found yourself now?
I feel secure that I've earned everything that I've gotten, and I've in respects to my vocation in my industry, I've been given the grandest pinnacle trophy there is of Best Actor for an Academy Award.
He talks about how his failures have shaped him, making it clear he's not interested in false modesty.
So I feel like I earned those things. I'm not a fan of false modesty. And I probably learned to not be falsely modest because I failed so many times. And I've got enough failure to go, oh man, when I do win or do succeed, I'm gonna go, thank you. You know what I mean? Because I know that that's just not how it is and how it's gonna remain.
He then dives deeper into his Hollywood mentality.
Now the idea of being an underdog, that's where that's a tool that has become instinctual for me, because I don't wanna be satisfied. I don't wanna get complacent.
Explaining how he has managed to stay true to himself in an industry that constantly tries to reshape people.
I know better than to believe that there's ta-da moments in life. Those are fictitious when we get there. They're a mirage. They are fleeting. Those moments when we go, ta-da, I got it. You know, those moments are not real. Even though when you're in them, you're like, this is so easy, it's so true, it's so clear. How could I ever be off this frequency? Well, trust me, you will be. Either by our own doing or by the world's doing, you get off of that frequency again. So I've learned that there's no real arrival, and that the best I can do is to keep chasing, keep grinding, keep working, keep trying to break a sweat to be my better self, or better at whatever it is I'm doing, or more true at whatever I'm doing.
Shifting from his Hollywood success, Matthew opens up about the deeper, more personal challenges he's faced in his faith journey.
Look, and I've had my agnostic years where I was fully like, no, this is about self-determination. And I wrote in the book, that wasn't as much about me challenging the existence of God or not, which I did question, and have questioned, throughout my life. Wasn't about disclaiming that as much as it was about going, you're kind of letting yourself off the hook a little bit here about some things, McConaughey. You're kind of letting some things slide in the name of faith, that you need to get your damn hands back on the wheel and go,
He reflects on the difference between taking responsibility for your own life and trusting God to guide the outcome.
I'm a big believer in self-reliance, and that we do have our hands on the wheel, and that God does want us to take that responsibility. If not, well, then go out and run every damn red light. And I'm sorry, the God I believe in is not happy with that, going, woohoo, fatalist, whatever happens, happens. Inshallah, yeah, good Lord willing, it'll happen. Well, no, BS. It takes work and it takes discernment. It's why he gave us free will, and why we have free will.
Hollywood is an industry that revolves around money. Actors often chase roles purely for the paycheck, but Matthew McConaughey stands out. He's turned down massive offers without hesitation, proving he's not for sale. When asked why, he reveals his personal philosophy on money and fame.
Money obviously isn't your highest value. It's not the thing that determines the decisions that you make. So what are the things that matter more to you, and that sort of determine the choices you make, that aren't money? What is the thing that'll make you say yes?
Well, let me precept this with, because I don't want to be cavalier, let me precept this by saying, I'm a fan of money. Okay? And what I'm about to say is not a condemnation of money or fame. I'm a fan of money and fame. I have money and I'm famous. I understand that. So I also understand how it's easier to say what I'm about to say as someone who's not having to work today to pay my rent tomorrow.
Matthew then reveals that he turned down a huge role that came with a huge paycheck just so he could save his own soul.
I do respect the question of, well, when's enough's enough? What, as soon as, I was able to turn down $14 million, one, because I needed to make I needed to say no to that for my own soul by the work I was doing. But at the same time, I called my money manager before and said, how have I invested my money here? Because I'm going to go with that work, and I'm going to turn down a $14 million. Is my rent paid? And he wasn't paid forever, but he's like, you've done well with your money. You're going to be able to go for a little while without working. So I had a privileged position. I'd put myself in that position to go, no to this money, no to this work that I had been doing, that in a way was keeping me from being able to do the work I wanted to do in the more dramatic roles.
Matthew goes on to explain the ripple effect his defiance had in Hollywood and the backlash that followed.
That turning down that amount of money did send a little bit of a lightning bolt through Hollywood and let Hollywood say, oh, McConaughey's not bluffing about not doing these rom-coms. He's serious. Their reaction was similar to yours. You just turned down that amount of money? And the script was good. It was good. It was consensus. The script was good for what it was. But I said no, and they went, oh, okay. So then no offers came in for another 14 months. And I was gone. I was forgotten. But that's exactly what had to be. I had to unbrand.
But you see, Matthew McConaughey isn't worried about backlash. During an interview to promote The Dark Tower, instead of sticking strictly to the script, he seizes the moment to speak openly about his faith. He used the spotlight not just to sell a movie, but to plant seeds of truth in an industry that often tries to silence voices like his.
Turned 9 the other day. Young Leviticus, there he is over in Mauritius where we're working right now. Levi is another name for Matthew in the Bible. All right, and so we had talked about possibly Matthew Jr. if we had a boy. And my favorite book of the Bible is Matthew 6:22. If thy eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light.
Matthew showcases his spiritual wisdom, diving into how he chose the name of his son Leviticus, while simultaneously talking about the Bible.
So Levi was one of the names of 6 different names. I didn't want it to be Matthew because I thought it'd be Matthew Jr. Levi was one of the 6 possible boy names. He's born. We find out he's a boy when he's born. You're not thinking about the name, right? Yeah. An hour later, the doctor comes up and they hand you that card that you fill out. Blank was born at 6:22 p.m. So we went, it's Levi.